Steven Spielberg's new film Disclosure Day is now playing in cinemas and I've just watched it. Let's discuss. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, or if you're new then welcome on in. My name is Jay. In this video I'm going to be reviewing the new film Disclosure Day. I did this in a previous review quite recently. I'm going to start off with some non-spoiler thoughts and then I'm going to move on to some spoiler thoughts. Don't worry, I will give a fair spoiler warning. Just remember though, anything in a trailer that's been released I'm not going to count as a spoiler, so if you don't want spoiled on absolutely anything, do the usual stuff for me, save the video to your watch later playlist, and then you can come back when you have seen the movie. Okay, we're going to start off with our non-spoiler thoughts, so let's get into it. Very quickly though, before we get started, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. You can go ahead and click that little bell as well, that way you are notified when I post a new video. Okay, that's all for real this time. Let's get into my thoughts on Disclosure Day. Disclosure Day is of course directed by Steven Spielberg, with David Koepp taking Spielberg's story and creating the screenplay attached to it. Emily Blunt stars as Margaret Fairchild, a television meteorologist who begins to experience some strange things that she cannot explain, alongside Josh O'Connor as Daniel Kellner, a cybersecurity expert who has decided that he, alongside many other defectors, are going to leak the information they were once hired to protect. The film also stars Colin Firth as Noah Scanlon, the boss of Wardex, which is the company that Daniel used to work for, Eve Hewson as Jane Blankenship, Daniel's girlfriend, Wyatt Russell as Jackson, Margaret's boyfriend, and Coleman Domingo as Hugo Wakefield, another Wardex former employee who takes a leading role in the attempt to disclose the company's secrets. I want to start off with the actual story, and again I don't include trailers as spoilers, so it's no secret that the main premise of this film is that a group of people want to expose to the world that aliens do in fact exist. However, although aliens are in the film, they're not introduced in a manner that disrupts the more grounded, mysterious tone that the film is trying to establish. We don't have a big battle or a big invasion like we do in 1996's Independence Day, though it's also not strictly dialogue driven, much like 2016's Arrival. Don't get me wrong, there are some pivotal moments of the film that hinge on that intense action. When these did happen though, I thought that they made sense, they didn't come out of nowhere, and they instead occurred at times that necessitated them. Equally, the final sequence of the film was probably my favourite part of the whole thing, and that was completely stripped of any action, with the film instead favouring to use a more silent atmosphere for quite a lengthy amount of time. I'll talk more about that particular sequence in the spoiler section of this review. The performances, of course, were also top class, with Emily Blunt being the clear standout for me. She really does solidify herself as a more than capable actress, who is extremely versatile, with her performance in Disclosure Day reminded me of Emily Charlton, of course from The Devil Wears Prada 2 that I saw last month, though in comparison to her, Margaret has far less control or knowledge over what is actually happening to her, and that is where Blunt is able to differentiate the two characters. That is, of course, apart from their British and American accents. Colin Firth plays a good antagonistic role as Noah. His motivations, though, I thought were not necessarily misguided, and to me that is what makes a good villain. He, of course, doesn't want the information to get leaked out into the world, which another character in the film actually recognises, and I like that acknowledgement because it makes the audience question whether or not leaking this information to the public is actually in the best interest. That being said, Noah does do some things that solidifies him as the bad guy of the film, even if his intentions might not be so flawed. At 2.5 hours, Disclosure Day is a long one, and if you know me, then you know that I'm going to question any film that's over 2 hours in runtime. However, I am happy to say that I don't think Disclosure Day wastes a single minute. It's one of those films, and the other one that comes to comparison at the moment is Interstellar, that as soon as you begin, it has you engaged for the entirety of its run. It's an experience that truly deserves to be watched on the big screen. Spielberg himself knows how to make these kind of films, and he of course has done similar things before, and I really do think the film itself is an impressive creation. I will say that though, and this is a common take for me recently, that I did leave the cinema feeling that something was missing from the film. I felt exactly the same way after watching Backrooms, that some big explanation was going to come along and yet it never actually arrived. The film purposefully draws out the mystery element, and I started off thinking that that was a smart thing to do because, as I said, it's not the type of film that wants to drop in aliens from the offset. Honestly, Disclosure Day itself is not so much about this extraterrestrial life that's out there, it's about how humans are reacting to their existence, and I really did appreciate that. Nevertheless, I was waiting on a twist, and although these twists arguably did occur, there was some important reveals, I was scratching my head at exactly what they meant. If you're looking for a more conclusive story, then you might come off a little bit disappointed given how the film ends. Again, I'm going to talk about that more in just a few minutes in my spoiler section. Overall, I'm going to be giving Disclosure Day a rating of 4 stars, and I've been doing that a lot recently. I get that I'm quite bad for giving films 4 stars, and maybe quite good for giving films 4 stars, but I just feel that that's what this film deserved. Blunt's performance and Spielberg's direction were some positive highlights, though I was left a little bit disappointed by some of the plot explanations. I am now going to move on to my spoiler thoughts, so if you don't want to know about them, if you've not seen the film yet, do as I said earlier, save the videos you watched out with us and come back later. Other than that, final spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so first thing, Margaret and David apparently were abducted by aliens as children. Okay, I believe that, I accept that, and I have no issue with that. However, why then? And are we meant to believe that they were abducted together? Certainly, it seemed that way. You saw them sit together, so you would assume that that did happen. But Blunt is obviously a little bit older than O'Connor. I think perhaps by 7 years. And obviously, actors can play characters of slightly different ages. That's fine. But the kids themselves looked the same age. Daniel just seemed a bit younger than Margaret. I'm not too sure about that. And, going more into the sort of reasons as to why they were abducted, I wasn't sure exactly why them in particular. Margaret herself also, later on in life, began experiencing strange things when that bird flew into her apartment. We know that the aliens disguised themselves as animals to make them come across not scary or as jarring, especially when they were kids, but what was it about that bird that triggered that? Was that an alien in disguise? I'm a little bit confused as to how that worked in particular. I'm not sure the purpose or the logic behind that, I should say. I also did feel a little bit confused on the aliens' relationship with Earth. Did they themselves first make contact with us, only to be subjected to barbaric experimentation? In one of the camera footage sequences that we saw, the aliens appeared to be walking hand in hand with the soldiers or the government, whoever it was, into a tent. Did that relationship then break down later on? I think that's what we're meant to believe. We also, of course, have those 3 devices that the humans were using throughout the film. They, of course, were alien origin, and that's where they came from, and I assumed that when aliens made contact, the humans then took them. But how did they learn how to actually use them? Did the aliens teach them? Obviously, we know, or it was at least hinted, that the devices were not being used to their full potential. I think at one point, one of the Wardex employees actually takes a device, he didn't have any gloves on, and he disappeared, and then he reappeared a few seconds later. What happened there? I felt like there was more to those devices. Maybe it was meant to be more ambiguous. That certainly seems to be a recurring theme in the film, but yeah, I'm not too sure on how the humans actually learned how to use them there. On the other hand, talking about less confusing things, I mentioned this earlier, I absolutely loved that ending sequence where Margaret sits in the TV studio and she exposes to the world about the extraterrestrial life that is out there. Seeing how the world stops, even amidst World War III, which I suppose on a separate point, like what was the purpose of having that one in the background? Was it to show maybe the scale of this and how the world didn't stop for World War III, but it certainly did for alien life out there, perhaps? Yes, but as I was saying, Margaret breaking down or breaking that news that there's alien life out there, to watch the truth be revealed is what I would define as cinema. I thought that the whole sequence is exactly how I would picture the world finding out about aliens. Everybody stops, everyone's watching, we're cutting between all the different people all across the globe. I thought that was really well done. Of course, the film ends with Margaret going, listen, and I wish we got to follow that instruction. I wish we could listen with to what she was about to say. A little bit disappointed there. I thought, getting to the end of the runtime, I was looking at my watch, like this one's about to end. I thought that might happen. So, a little bit disappointed that that's how it ended, but hey, it is what it is. Okay, that is all my spoiler thoughts for the moment. I will remind you one more time to hit that subscribe button, and I will thank you very much for watching. Lots more to come on the channel, so I hope to see you soon. Bye.